They call me the man who has everything: wealth, power, influence. But none of it means much when you're sitting alone at the top. That's the thing about success. Sometimes, it isolates you from the world you fought so hard to conquer. I'm Richard Blake, a self-made millionaire, known in my circles for my ruthless business tactics and an impenetrable wall of confidence. Yet, beneath all of that, I've grown tired of the emptiness that comes with my lifestyle. I didn't think much of it when I first met her. Anna. She worked as a barista at a small cafe I occasionally stopped by when my regular meetings were canceled. She wasn't remarkable in the conventional sense, but there was something in her demeanor, a quiet determination, a warmth that seemed untouched by the harshness of life. The way she smiled, not for tips or to charm, but because she genuinely seemed to enjoy her work, caught my attention. We started talking when the cafe was less busy. She told me about her struggles, how she was putting herself through college while juggling 2 jobs. She spoke about her dream of becoming a teacher, of making a difference in the lives of children who came from the same disadvantaged background she did. Her sincerity was refreshing in a world where people only ever wanted to use me for their gain. She had no idea who I was. To her, I was just a man who enjoyed a good cup of coffee and the occasional conversation. The more I got to know Anna, the more I wanted to see her. For the first time in years, I found myself looking forward to something that wasn't tied to business or profit margins. But there was a problem. Anna believed I was just an ordinary guy, struggling to make ends meet like she was. I had let her think that, not because I wanted to lie, but because I feared what would happen if she knew the truth. I wasn't ready to ruin the fragile connection we had, but I also knew it couldn't last. One day, as I watched her laugh at something I'd said, I realized just how deeply I had fallen for her, and that scared me. How could someone like Anna, so pure and unpretentious, ever fit into my world? Or worse, how could I ever fit into hers? That's when I came up with the idea. It was reckless, borderline absurd, but I was desperate. I decided to disguise myself as a beggar, to strip away the wealth, the tailored suits, the aura of success, and meet Anna on her terms. I needed to know if the connection we shared was real, if she would still see me for who I was without the veneer of money and power. I prepared for the plan meticulously. I went to a thrift store in a part of town I had never visited before, buying the shabbiest clothes I could find. My driver, bewildered by my request, dropped me off a few blocks away from Anna's cafe. For once, I walked the streets alone, blending into the crowd. It was humbling in a way I hadn't expected. No one turned to look at me. No one stepped aside. I was invisible, just another man down on his luck. As I approached the cafe, my heart pounded in a way it hadn't in years. Not from fear, but from the weight of what I was about to do. I entered, the bell above the door jingling softly, and immediately felt out of place. The other customers glanced at me, their expressions ranging from pity to disdain. But then Anna looked up from behind the counter, and her face lit up with that same genuine smile. "Hi," she said warmly. "What can I get for you?" I hesitated, realizing I hadn't thought this part through. "Just a coffee," I mumbled, my voice intentionally low. I fumbled for the few crumpled bills I had brought with me, but my hands shook, and the money spilled onto the counter. Anna's expression softened as she quickly picked it up. "It's on the house," she said quietly, her voice kind but firm. "You look like you could use a break." Her words hit me harder than I expected. She didn't just see a man in shabby clothes. She saw a person, someone worth acknowledging. I mumbled a thank you and took a seat by the window, watching as she moved effortlessly around the cafe. It struck me then how little I knew about her life outside of our conversations. What challenges did she face every day? What dreams kept her going when the world felt heavy? As the cafe emptied out, Anna approached my table with a fresh cup of coffee. "You look familiar," she said, tilting her head as she studied me. "Have we met before?" My heart skipped a beat. "I don't think so," I replied, lowering my gaze. "I guess I just have one of those faces." She laughed softly. "Maybe. But there's something about you?" She trailed off, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she were trying to solve a puzzle. Then she shrugged, placing the coffee in front of me. Well, enjoy. And if you need anything else, just let me know. I watched her walk away, a mix of relief and disappointment swirling in my chest. She hadn't recognized me, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps, or suspicion. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep up the charade, but I knew one thing for certain. Anna's kindness wasn't tied to appearances. She treated me with the same warmth and respect she had always shown, even when I appeared to have nothing to offer in return. As I left the cafe that day, I felt a strange sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for us after all. But as the days passed, my plan began to unravel in ways I hadn't anticipated, and I realized that the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how hard you try to hide it. Little did I know, my deception would set off a chain of events that would change both our lives forever. The next day, I couldn't resist returning to the cafe. Disguised again in my shabby clothes, I entered just as Anna was wiping down the counter. She looked up, her face lighting up with the same welcoming smile that had drawn me in from the beginning. "Back again?" she asked warmly. "Didn't think I'd see you so soon." I hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of my lie. "Yeah," I muttered. "Just needed a quiet place to sit." She nodded, handing me another coffee, this time without me even asking. "Well, it's good to see a familiar face," she said, leaning slightly on the counter. "What's your name, by the way?" I froze for a split second before blurting out, "Richard." The truth slipped out before I could think of a fake name. Thankfully, she didn't seem to connect the dots. "Nice to meet you, Richard. I'm Anna." Her smile widened, and for a moment, I forgot about my disguise, my lies, and the complicated web I was weaving. We talked for a little while that day. She told me more about her struggles, how she worked long hours to support her sick mother, how she barely made enough to cover rent. Yet, despite everything, she remained optimistic, grateful for the little joys in life. I was captivated by her resilience, her ability to find light in the darkest places. But as I listened, guilt began to creep in. She was opening up to me, trusting me, and I was deceiving her. I told myself it was harmless, that my intentions were good. I just wanted to know if her kindness extended beyond surface appearances. Still, a voice in the back of my mind kept warning me, this can't last. As I left the cafe that evening, I resolved to end the charade soon. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. A few days later, Anna surprised me. As I sat in my usual spot, sipping the coffee she had kindly given me, she approached my table with an excited look on her face. "Hey, Richard," she said, her voice tinged with nervous energy. "I know this might sound crazy, but would you like to come to dinner tomorrow night? Just a small gathering at my place. A few friends, nothing fancy." I stared at her, caught completely off guard. She wanted me, a man she thought was struggling, a beggar essentially, to meet her friends, to see her world up close. I don't know," I stammered. "Are you sure?" "Of course," she said brightly. "You seem like a good person, and I think you'd enjoy it. Plus, it's nothing formal. Just good food and good company." Her sincerity disarmed me. How could I refuse? "All right," I said quietly. "I'll be there." She beamed at me, and for a moment, I forgot about the consequences of my actions. But as I left the cafe that evening, the weight of what I was doing hit me harder than ever. Tomorrow night, I wouldn't just be lying to Anna. I'd be lying to everyone in her life. And I wasn't sure if I could live with that. The next evening, I stood outside Anna's small apartment, nerves knotting my stomach. I had traded my usual designer suits for the same worn-out clothes I had been wearing to the cafe. It was surreal, a millionaire standing on the doorstep of a modest apartment, pretending to be someone I wasn't. Anna opened the door with her signature warm smile. "Richard, I'm so glad you came," she said, ushering me inside. Her apartment was small but cozy. The faint aroma of home-cooked food filled the air, and soft music played in the background. A group of people sat in the living room, laughing and talking. They all looked up as I entered, their expressions shifting to polite curiosity. "Everyone, this is Richard," Anna introduced me cheerfully. He's been a regular at the cafe. The group greeted me warmly, though I couldn't help but notice a few fleeting glances at my shabby appearance. Anna, however, seemed completely unfazed, her kindness wrapping me in a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. Throughout the evening, I learned more about Anna and her friends. Most of them were like her, hardworking, resilient, and fiercely loyal to one another. They shared stories about their struggles and dreams, laughing at moments of misfortune and celebrating small victories. I stayed quiet for the most part, not wanting to draw attention to myself. But as I listened, I began to feel something I hadn't expected: envy. These people, despite their limited means, had something I didn't: genuine connections, unshaken by pretense or ambition. Anna sat next to me during dinner, occasionally glancing at me to make sure I was comfortable. At one point, she leaned in and whispered, "You're awfully quiet. Everything okay?" I nodded, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, I'm just taking it all in." She smiled back, her expression soft and understanding. "I'm glad you came. It's nice having you here." Her words hit me harder than they should have. I wasn't used to this kind of sincerity, this effortless warmth. And the more time I spent with Anna, the more I dreaded the moment she would find out the truth. Toward the end of the evening, Anna's best friend, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, cornered me in the kitchen. "So, Richard," she said, her tone friendly but probing, "what do you do for a living?" The question caught me off guard. I hadn't prepared for this. Odd jobs, mostly." I lied, avoiding her gaze. Claire raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Odd jobs, huh? Well, Anna seems to think highly of you, so I guess that's all that matters." Her words were casual, but there was an edge to them that made me uneasy. It was clear she was protective of Anna, and I couldn't blame her. I was deceiving her friend, after all. As I left that night, Anna walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," she said sincerely. "I hope you had a good time." "I did," I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. "Thank you for inviting me." She hesitated for a moment, her eyes searching mine. "You know, Richard, you're different from anyone I've met. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I can trust you." Her words were like a knife to my chest. I wanted to tell her the truth, to explain everything, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I nodded and said, "I feel the same way." As I walked away, the weight of my deception grew heavier. Anna trusted me, and I was betraying that trust with every passing day. I knew I couldn't keep this up much longer, but I also knew that telling her the truth could destroy everything we had built. For the first time in years, I felt truly stuck, and I had no idea how to move forward. The following week, I avoided the cafe. I couldn't face Anna, not after the dinner. The guilt gnawed at me relentlessly, and every time I thought about her kind smile or the way she'd said she trusted me, my chest tightened. I spent those days in my office, burying myself in work, trying to forget. But no matter how many meetings I attended or contracts I signed, my mind kept drifting back to her. It wasn't just guilt, it was fear. Fear that the lie had gone too far, that revealing the truth now would only hurt her more. Fear that Anna, who valued honesty and hard work above all else, would never forgive me for pretending to be someone I wasn't. By the end of the week, I couldn't take it anymore. Against my better judgment, I decided to see her again. I didn't bother with the disguise this time. I wanted to explain everything, to be honest with her for the first time since we met. But as I approached the cafe, I saw something that stopped me in my tracks. Anna was sitting outside on the patio, her face lit up with laughter as she talked to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, and confident, the kind of man who belonged in my world, not hers. They seemed close, their conversation easy and familiar. My stomach twisted at the sight, a sharp pang of jealousy coursing through me. I stood there, frozen, watching them from a distance. The man leaned forward, saying something that made Anna laugh again, and I felt a wave of regret wash over me. What was I doing here? Why had I let things get this far? I turned and walked away, my heart heavy. I had no right to feel jealous, no right to intrude on her life. She deserved someone who could be honest with her, someone who wouldn't hide behind lies and half-truths. And yet, the thought of losing her, of never seeing her smile again, was unbearable. Later that night, as I sat alone in my penthouse, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Anna. "Hey Richard, haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything's okay. Just wanted to say I miss our talks." Her words were simple, but they hit me like a freight train. She missed me. Despite everything, she cared. I stared at the message for what felt like hours, my mind racing. This was my chance to come clean, to tell her the truth before it was too late. I typed out a response, my hands trembling. "Anna, there's something I need to tell you. Can we meet tomorrow?" Her reply came almost immediately. "Of course. Same place." I hesitated before typing, "Yes." The next day, I arrived at the cafe early, my heart pounding. For the first time in years, I felt vulnerable. I had built my life on control, on being untouchable. But with Anna, I couldn't hide behind my wealth or status. I had to be honest, no matter the cost. When she walked in, her face lit up at the sight of me. "Richard, I was starting to think you'd disappeared." I forced a smile, my throat dry. "I'm sorry. I've been busy." She sat down across from me, her expression soft. "You don't need to explain. I'm just glad you're here." I took a deep breath, the words bubbling to the surface. "Anna, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Her smile faded, replaced by a look of concern. "What is it?" "I haven't been completely honest with you," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "The man you think I am, the man I've pretended to be, it's not the whole truth." Her brow furrowed, confusion flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to stop, to turn back. But I couldn't. Not anymore. "I'm not struggling to get by, Anna. I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "I'm wealthy. A millionaire, actually." Her eyes widened, and she leaned back in her chair as if I had physically pushed her. "What?" "I didn't mean to deceive you," I said quickly. "At first, I just wanted to get to know you without all the baggage that comes with my life. But then it spiraled, and I didn't know how to stop. I'm so sorry, Anna. I never wanted to hurt you." She stared at me, her expression unreadable. "So all this time, you've been lying to me?" "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But everything I've said about how I feel, about how much I care about you, that's real." For a long moment, she said nothing. The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Finally, she stood, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I need time to think," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can trust you, Richard." And with that, she walked away, leaving me alone in the cafe, surrounded by the weight of my own choices. I had finally told her the truth, but it felt like I had lost her anyway. The days that followed were the loneliest I'd experienced in years. Anna didn't respond to my messages or calls. Each time I picked up my phone to reach out to her, the memory of the hurt in her eyes stopped me cold. I had spent so much of my life focused on control, on shaping outcomes to fit my desires. But this was something I couldn't fix with money, charm, or influence. I couldn't stop replaying our conversation in my mind, her expression shifting from warmth to disbelief, the way her voice trembled when she said she needed time. I had prepared myself for the possibility that she might be angry, but I hadn't been ready for the silence that followed. A week later, I received a text. My heart leapt when I saw her name on the screen, but the message was brief and formal. "Can we talk? Same cafe, 5 p.m. I stared at the words, feeling a mix of hope and dread. She wanted to talk, but I couldn't tell if it was to forgive me or to end things for good. Still, I knew I had to go. At 5 p.m. sharp, I arrived at the cafe. Anna was already there, sitting at our usual table by the window. Her expression was calm, but her hands were clasped tightly on the table, betraying her nerves. I sat down across from her, my chest tightening at the sight of her. "Thank you for meeting me," I began, my voice tentative. She nodded, her gaze steady but guarded. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, she began. About who you are, and why you lied. I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up a hand, stopping me. Please, let me finish. I nodded, sitting back in my chair, bracing myself. You hurt me, Richard, she said softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Not because you're wealthy or because you kept it from me, but because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth from the start. You assumed I wouldn't care about you if I knew. Do you know how insulting that feels? I didn't mean to insult you, I said quickly. I was scared, Anna. I've seen how people treat me when they know about my money. They don't see me. They see what I can give them. But you were different. You treated me like a person, not a paycheck. I didn't want to lose that. She let out a soft sigh, her shoulders sagging slightly. I understand why you felt that way. I really do. But relationships are built on trust, Richard. And right now, I'm not sure I can trust you. Her words cut deep, but I knew she was right. I don't blame you, I said quietly. You have every right to feel that way. But please, Anna, give me a chance to show you that you can trust me. I'll do whatever it takes. She looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing my sincerity. Finally, she spoke. I'm not saying I can forgive you right away, but I'm willing to give us a chance. On one condition. Anything, I said immediately. No more lies, she said firmly. If this is going to work, you have to be honest with me. Always. I nodded, relief flooding through me. I promise. Over the next few weeks, I worked to rebuild Anna's trust. I opened up to her in ways I never had with anyone else. I told her about my childhood, about the sacrifices I had made to build my empire, and about the loneliness that had followed. She listened, her expression softening as she began to understand the man behind the wealth. In turn, she shared more of herself with me. Her dreams, her fears, and the struggles she faced every day. I saw the strength in her, the resilience that had drawn me to her in the first place. And slowly, the wall between us began to crumble. One evening, as we walked through the park, she turned to me with a small smile. You know, Richard, I think you're starting to get it. Get what? I asked, curious. That life isn't about what you have, she said. It's about who you are. And the man I'm seeing now, he's someone I could see myself trusting. Her words warmed my heart, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could build something real, something that wasn't defined by wealth or appearances, but by the connection we shared. But as the days went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that my past might come back to haunt me. And I was right. Just as things were beginning to feel steady between us, an unexpected revelation threatened to tear everything apart. It was a Friday evening when my past caught up with me in a way I hadn't anticipated. Anna and I were sitting together in her small apartment, sharing takeout and talking about her day. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt at ease. Things between us were becoming more natural, more real. The tension that had once hung in the air seemed to have dissolved, replaced by a tentative trust we were both nurturing. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it briefly, her brow furrowing. That's strange, she murmured. It's Claire, her best friend, the one who had been suspicious of me from the start. Anna picked up the call, her voice cheerful. Hey, Claire. What's up? I couldn't hear what Claire was saying, but I saw the way Anna's expression changed. The warmth drained from her face, replaced by confusion, then disbelief. She glanced at me briefly, and my stomach dropped. Something was wrong. What are you talking about? Anna said, her voice shaking slightly. That can't be true. I leaned forward, my heart pounding. Anna, what's going on? She didn't answer. Instead, she hung up the call and turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and anger. Richard, is there something you're not telling me? Something about your company? My heart sank. Claire must have found something, dug up some detail from my business dealings, some mistake I had made. Anna, I don't know what she told you, I began carefully, but I promise I can explain. Her voice was sharp, She said there's an article circulating about you, about how your company laid off hundreds of employees last year while you gave yourself a massive bonus. Is that true? The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was true, partly at least. Last year, during a financial restructuring, I had approved layoffs in a department that wasn't performing well. And yes, there had been a bonus, but it wasn't as simple as the article would have made it seem. It's more complicated than that, I said, my voice defensive. The layoffs were necessary to keep the company afloat. And the bonus? The bonus was what, Richard? She interrupted, her voice rising. A reward for cutting people's livelihoods? Do you even hear yourself? I stood, my frustration bubbling to the surface. You don't understand what it's like to run a company, Anna. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions. It's not as black and white as you think. And you think that makes it okay? She shot back. You think that justifies taking from people who already have so little while you sit at the top? Her words stung because they echoed the very doubts I had struggled with in the past. I had justified those decisions to myself 100 times, telling myself they were necessary, that they were for the greater good. But now, standing in front of Anna, I wasn't so sure. The argument escalated, each of us saying things we didn't mean. By the time I left her apartment that night, slamming the door behind me, I felt like everything we had built was unraveling. The trust one had worked so hard to rebuild was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. For days, Anna didn't respond to my calls or texts. I tried to give her space, hoping she would cool down, but the silence was unbearable. I found myself replaying our argument over and over, wondering if I could have handled it differently, if I could have said something to make her understand. But deep down, I knew the real problem wasn't the layoffs or the bonus. The real problem was me, my inability to reconcile the person I had been with the person I wanted to become. Anna had seen the worst of me, and I wasn't sure if she could still see the good. A week later, I decided to take action. I went to the community center where Anna volunteered, a place she had often spoken about with pride. It was a small but vibrant space, filled with people from all walks of life, working together to make a difference. When I arrived, I saw her standing at the far end of the room, helping a young boy with his homework. She looked tired but determined, her kindness shining through even in the smallest gestures. My heart ached at the sight of her. I waited until she was free, then approached her cautiously. "Anna," I said softly. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing here, Richard?" "I came to apologize," I said, "for everything." She crossed her arms, her gaze steady but guarded. "Go on." I took a deep breath. "You were right. About the layoffs, about the bonus. I told myself they were necessary, that they were just business decisions, but the truth is, I didn't think about the people those decisions affected. I was so focused on the bottom line that I forgot about what really matters." Her expression softened slightly, but she didn't say anything, so I continued. "Meeting you changed that for me, Anna. You've shown me what it means to care about people, to see them as more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. I want to be better for you, for myself, and for the people my decisions affect. But I can't do that without your help." She looked away for a moment, her brow furrowed in thought. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but firm. "Richard, I believe people can change. But change isn't just about saying the right things, it's about doing the right things. If you want me to believe in you, you have to prove it." "I will," I said, my voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes." She nodded slowly, her gaze meeting mine. "All right, but this is your last chance, Richard. Don't waste it." As I left the community center that day, a glimmer of hope began to grow in my chest. Anna hadn't forgiven me yet, but she was giving me a chance to prove that I was worthy of her trust. And this time, I wasn't going to let her down. The days that followed were the most humbling of my life. Anna's words echoed in my mind. Change isn't just about saying the right things. It's about doing the right things. I knew she wouldn't believe in me until I proved that I could back up my promises with action. I had no choice but to show her, and myself, that I was capable of more than the man I used to be. I started with the layoffs. For the first time, I sat down with my team of executives and reviewed the decision that had caused so much pain. I asked hard questions I had avoided before. Was this really necessary? Could we have done things differently? The answers weren't easy to hear. We could have saved at least some of those jobs. We had been too focused on short-term profits to see the bigger picture. I made a decision right then and there. We were going to do better. I instructed my team to reach out to the employees we had let go and offer them new positions or severance packages that reflected the respect they deserved. It wasn't enough to undo the harm, but it was a start. But I didn't stop there. Inspired by Anna's work at the community center, I decided to create a new initiative within my company, a program that would focus on social responsibility and giving back to the community. We would partner with organizations like Anna's, offering funding, resources, and job opportunities to people who needed them most. When I presented the idea to my board of directors, the reaction was mixed. Some saw it as a distraction from our core business goals, while others argued it was exactly what we needed to repair our reputation. For once, I didn't care about the opposition. I was determined to push this through. It's not just about our reputation, I told them during the meeting. It's about doing the right thing. If we can use our success to help others, why wouldn't we? In the end, the board approved the initiative, and I felt a flicker of pride, something I hadn't felt in a long time. But the real challenge was still ahead. Telling Anna. The next time I saw her, she was back at the community center, organizing a food drive. She looked up as I approached, her expression cautious but curious. "Richard," she said, her tone neutral. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to show you something," I said, handing her a folder. Inside were the plans for the new initiative, the partnerships, the funding, the job opportunities we were about to create. She opened the folder and scanned the documents, her brow furrowing slightly. "You're really doing this?" she asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "I am," I said firmly. "This isn't just a PR move, Anna. It's something I believe in, and it's because of you." Her eyes met mine, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a hint of the warmth I had missed so much. "It's a good start," she said quietly, "but it's going to take more than this to convince me." "I know," I replied, "but I'm not doing this just to convince you. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do." She nodded, her expression softening. "All right, Richard, let's see what you can do." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into the initiative, working closely with Anna and her team to ensure everything ran smoothly. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, doubts, and moments when I wondered if I had bitten off more than I could chew. But every time I felt like giving up, I thought of Anna and the trust she had placed in me. Couldn't let her down again. The more we worked together, the closer we grew. There were still moments of tension, times when I could see the hesitation in her eyes. But there were also moments of laughter, quiet conversations, and shared victories that reminded me of why I had fallen for her in the first place. One evening, after a particularly long day, we sat together on the steps of the community center, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The silence between us was comfortable, the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. "You've changed, you know," Anna said suddenly, her voice soft. I looked at her, surprised. "Have I?" She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "You're not the same man who walked into that cafe pretending to be someone else. You've grown, Richard, and I'm proud of you for that." Her words warmed my heart, but they also reminded me of how much I had to lose. "Anna," I said, my voice hesitant, "I don't just want your approval. I want you. I want us." She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Richard, I care about you. I really do. But trust isn't something you earn overnight. It's something you build day by day. And I need to know that this change in you is real." "It is," I said earnestly. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you if I have to." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "Then let's take it one day at a time." That night, as I walked away from the community center, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Anna wasn't ready to forgive me completely, but she was willing to try. And for the first time, I truly believed that I could become the man she deserved. But I also knew the journey wasn't over yet. There was still more work to be done, both in my company and in myself. And I was ready for it. Weeks turned into months, and the initiative took on a life of its own. It wasn't just a project anymore, it was a movement. We helped create jobs for people who had lost everything, partnered with local charities to rebuild struggling neighborhoods, and provided scholarships for students who would otherwise never have a chance to pursue higher education. It was the kind of work that reminded me of what I had been missing all these years, a sense of purpose that wasn't tied to profits or prestige. And through it all, Anna was by my side. She was the driving force behind so many of our successes, pushing me and our team to go further, to think bigger. The hesitation I once saw in her eyes began to fade, replaced by a cautious but growing trust. It wasn't spoken, but I felt it in the way she laughed more freely around me, in the moments we shared planning late into the night, and in the quiet looks she gave me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. One evening, after a long day at the office, I decided it was time to take another step forward. Not just for us, but for myself. I asked Anna to meet me at the community center after hours, under the guise of discussing a new proposal. She agreed, though I could hear the curiosity in her voice. When she arrived, she found the main hall transformed. Soft lights illuminated the space, and a small table was set up in the center with 2 chairs and a simple meal. I wasn't trying to impress her with grandeur. I just wanted the moment to feel genuine. "Richard," she said, her voice laced with surprise. "What is this?" I stepped forward, suddenly feeling more nervous than I had in any business meeting. "It's dinner," I said with a small smile. "I thought we deserved a break." She looked at me for a moment, her expression softening. "You didn't have to do this." "I know," I replied, "but I wanted to. For you. For us." She hesitated, then nodded, a small smile tugging at her lips. "All right, let's eat." As we sat together, the conversation flowed easily. We talked about the progress we had made, the challenges we still faced, and the dreams we both had for the future. It felt natural, comfortable, like we had finally reached a place where we could just be ourselves. At one point, I reached across the table and took her hand in mine. "Anna," I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I've hurt you. But I want you to know that everything I've done since meeting you, every decision I've made, has been because I want to be the kind of man you can believe in. The kind of man you deserve." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't pull her hand away. "You've come a long way, Richard," she said softly. "And I can see how hard you've worked to make things right. But trust isn't just about the past. It's about the future. Can you promise me that the man you are now is the man you'll continue to be?" "I promise," I said without hesitation. "I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you." For a long moment, we sat there in silence, the weight of our journey settling between us. Then, to my surprise, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to mine. A soft, tender kiss that spoke of forgiveness, of hope, and of something more. When she pulled back, her smile was brighter than I'd ever seen it. "One day at a time," she said. "One day at a time." I agreed, my heart lighter than it had been in years. From that moment on, everything changed. Anna and I weren't just partners in the initiative, we were partners in life. Our relationship grew stronger with each passing day, built on the trust and understanding we had fought so hard to achieve. The walls that once separated us had crumbled, leaving behind something real, something worth fighting for. The initiative continued to flourish, and with Anna's help, my company became a leader in corporate social responsibility. For the first time, I saw the impact of our work not in numbers, but in the faces of the people we helped. The single mother who could now support her family, the young man who found a job after years of searching, the child who could dream of a better future. One evening, as we walked hand in hand through the city, I stopped and turned to her. "Anna," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion, "you've changed my life in ways I can't even begin to describe. You've shown me what it means to care, to love, and to live with purpose. I don't want to imagine my life without you." Her eyes widened slightly, and I could see the beginnings of tears glistening in them. "Richard," I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a simple but elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" I asked, my heart pounding. For a moment, she said nothing, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she broke into a radiant smile. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "1,000 times yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger, my hands shaking slightly, and pulled her into my arms. As the city lights twinkled around us, I realized that this was the life I had been searching for. Not one built on wealth or power, but on love, trust, and the quiet joy of knowing I had finally found my place in the world. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, held at the community center that had brought us together. Surrounded by friends, colleagues, and the people whose lives we had touched, we exchanged vows that spoke not just of love, but of the journey that had brought us to this moment. In the months that followed, we continued to build our life together, balancing the demands of work with the simple joys of being a team. And while the challenges never disappeared, we faced them together, one day at a time. Looking back, I realized that meeting Anna had been the turning point in my life, the moment when everything I thought I knew about success and happiness had been turned on its head. She had shown me the power of kindness, the importance of honesty, and the beauty of living with purpose. And for that, I would be forever grateful.